I had absolutely every intention on vlogging throughout October, and whatever plans I had for October were not the October I had. So welcome to a mini recap of October. What I read, what I did, what I didn't do, and I didn't read, and a lot of things. Whilst I didn't vlog, I did take some footage on my phone, so I thought it would be nice to just do a little recap for us. It's funny because I actually even posted a picture of my planned TBR on Instagram. This was it. This was the stack. So out of these, I have read one. I've read one thing. So this is gonna be a much more chill, sit down talk. I hope you grab yourself a drink. And also could be absolutely boring to some of you, so I'm sorry if that's the case, and I have some more content coming your way, so that's fine. But if you want to have a little catch up, I hope you will enjoy this with me. Because October has felt like a whole year, it didn't feel a quick month like a lot of the past months do when you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's over. To me, this time around, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe this thing that I did was also in October. So I guess it was quite a busy one. I feel like a little bit different from my usual schedule in general, which is also why I've not been posting that much. It's just really been like, on top of all of the things that I'm gonna be talking about, I also had a very busy work month, in a sense that, you know, when you're like finished with work, and I know a lot of you will know the feeling, when you finish with work, like mentally you don't have a lot of other energy left over. So that's always not great for like reading and anything else creatively. So I started reading a little bit later in October to begin with, and then the thing that I read was just so significant in a way that this was the first thing that I read only for myself. I'm not gonna talk about it online, I'm not gonna dissect it or do anything. It is a very good old reading for the sake of reading and actually not speaking about it, which, you know, I'm obviously speaking about it now, but I'm not gonna speak about it. So that's number one. Number two, it was actually like a very substantial amount. So technically, I have read, hello Momo, technically I have read a lot during this month. It's just that that was not in the plan. Thirdly, it was my first nonfiction, which obviously explains to you why I'm not talking about it, because whatever nonfiction you choose to read is between you and whatever entity you believe in, because a lot of it is highly unhinged and just, you know, so I'm gonna apply the same rule to me. It's just between me and myself. And I love sharing opinions on books here, and I love reading and sharing in the reading with you, but I think there's something very unique, and I didn't realize how much I missed reading something just for the sake of reading, not having to remember or focus too much on particular things that I'm gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be interesting to talk about. Obviously, equally, I still had the urge to like talk about it and just see like, ooh, who else read it? I think it was also just the sheer amount of years that I didn't realize I've not done that for. Like, no one's stopping me, but do you know what I mean? I believe it would be the same the other way around. Like, if I stopped doing YouTube and I stopped talking about books online, and then, you know, it was, what, like 10 years or whatever passed, and then I would do that for the first time, it would also feel equally special. So there's no one way that I prefer it. It's just the sheer difference, or the fact that I have not felt this to be a solely me thing for a very long time. It was nice. It was different. It was very reminiscent of my childhood and me reading, and definitely not sharing with anyone, not for the lack of wanting, for the lack of like friends who read or enjoy it. Or enjoy the same things. I think that's also a big part of why I started YouTube, is because I totally missed out on, you know, like people going to like midnight releases together and sharing in the love of certain fandoms. I had none of that. I had one friend who read and liked it, and we didn't really talk about it that much. And that was it. So when I realized that there's a whole community here, that was my time. That was my time to shine and thrive. And honestly, my life would have been completely different if I didn't decide to just jump into it. And I'm very grateful that I somewhere mustered the courage to turn the camera on, film it, and say hi to the internet. You know, when you're thinking about, and obviously we do on this channel quite a bit, when you're thinking about like timelines and decisions forking into different timelines and different multiverses, like this would be such a key one for me. Which sounds funny, but obviously I'm now working with books, and this is also my somewhat of a job, and the Patreon has brought me the kindest community that I have ever been part of. This is not where this video was supposed to go. Anyway, doesn't matter. What was what I was saying is that I read a fanfiction. I completely forgot what I was going. I read a fanfiction, and this was my first ever one. I've never ever, and I don't know why now. I don't know, but I do know that it was an experience. It was honestly amazing. I have not felt that rush and like drive as much as I did with this. It took me a little while to get into it, but when I was into it, do I tell you I was into it? It was the sense of I finish work and all I do is read, and you will hopefully find this as amusing as I did, but I was reading so much, and I was reading it on my phone as well. I was reading, and my phone is heavy, and I normally would have a pop socket, but because I use it for like maps when I'm driving, it doesn't fit in my holder with a pop socket. So I don't have it here, so I hold it like this. It's not the most comfortable if you're doing it for many days in a row, constantly. Pretty much all the time that I was not working, I was reading. It was one of those like cooking, in between stirring, I'm reading. Wake up early before work so I can read. There are very, very few things I'll do that for, and I really, truly miss that feeling so much. And I was just so immersed in it. I was just so living for it. It was a religious experience. Unfortunately, so I had a brilliant time and started questioning my whole existence here, because I was like, maybe I should just quit online, just everything online, and go offline and just read fanfiction forever. just live in the trenches, live outside the society. Honestly, still very tempted. As often it happens after you read something that was this enthralling, you find yourself really not able to move on from it very quickly. And when I have not experienced this in a very long time, and it actually reminded me that I have not read anything that I loved on that level for a very long time. And I think it made me also realize that I had a lot of 5 stars. I had a lot of books that I enjoyed a lot and loved a lot. However, I don't think I realized that I have not had one that I loved this much. I was living, breathing it. And I think it saddened me on a level, because I think I just forgot how it feels like, and I forgot how much joy I can possibly get from reading. And that was a whole different level of realization that I'm trying to process, because I thought that I was, finding books that I love and have really solid 5 stars. And granted, they're not very common, because I am quite hard to please with when it comes to books, but I didn't realize how sad of a lack of that such a satisfying experience I've been having, and I don't like that. I would like to rectify it, but I don't know how, other than just yeeting everything and going apparently into fanfiction. That being said, I'm sure there's like a lot of fanfictions that would be exactly like the regularly published books and not as satisfying. I'm sure the stars aligned. I just really feel like I'm going to be on a mission of just finding another book that does that for me. But it's so hard. It's so hard. Even the books that I like, I feel like I'm not liked on that level. So anyway, lots of emotions. And then the next thing I tried to read after that, I did take a little break, but I was also equally very inspired to read. However, I think I put myself in a slump with that experience. So the next thing that I tried to read was only my most anticipated release of the year, The Shadow Cabinet. And unfortunately, I just couldn't focus on it. So instead of sacrificing it to the slump gods, I decided to put it aside and get back to it another time. I think I don't know how much I've read, probably like 100 pages or something, so it was probably like somewhere here-ish. But I probably would be maybe not restarting all of it, but I would be going back a couple of chapters for sure and then trying again. I really don't think it's the book. I really think it was me. Or at least that's what I hope for. But I'm putting a pause to that. So that's one book of the TBR list that we're already not touching. Well, we touched a bit, but and we are already kind of like past the middle of the month, so you can already see how October is gonna go. So at this point of October, I've announced that I'm gonna introduce workshops to my Patreon, which I was very, very excited about, and now I am excited even more because we did have our first one. But for the first one, I was walking people through how to crochet themselves a ghost plushie for their ghostly month shenanigans. These are the ones that I was crocheting when I was making the pattern, but I will show you the ones that we did during the stream because I chose a different colored yarn so people could see it better when I was doing it, but we're not there yet. So at this point, I had a 4-day long trip for work to London. So we went to London and it was beautifully autumnal. Obviously, traveling with my health is always a little bit stressful for me. I was definitely packed like I am a pharmacist on a mission, but you know, better prepared than not. Thankfully, actually, my head has behaved quite well, so I'm quite happy about that. But it did mean that I kind of lost a week of evenings, and as much as it was really interesting and really good to see people in person, instead of a 9 to 5, it was pretty much more 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So it was a very, you know, packed schedule and not a lot of free time. So I have done 0 reading towards my October TBR, nor obviously like filming or anything like that because I was away. And then I was definitely presented with a beautiful opportunity to do a lot of reading because our train back got delayed mid-journey and then kept being delayed, and instead of being 4.5 hours, it ended up being 10 hours. So I was very, very tired at that point, and I was going backwards, which is my favorite direction as someone who gets quite motion sick. So in reality, I am actually joking because I can never read on a moving vehicle. Thankfully I wasn't too bad going backwards because I wasn't in the middle of a migraine attack. So I was genuinely obviously not very happy about the 10-hour duration. However, I was eternally grateful to the universe for not putting me through that whilst having a migraine attack, because I would have to literally just lay on the floor and apologize to anyone trying to pass because it would just not be fantastic. It was hilarious, however, that they ran out of food, obviously, because they didn't plan for such a long journey. But the first thing they ran out of was alcohol. So that's interesting. So the first thing I did after I got back and it was time for a weekend, I sought out the beautiful autumnal nature because I came back, and it's so funny because it was literally a week's worth of being away. I went away and it was like getting autumnal here, right? I came back and everything's like bam, orange. And I was like, I was honestly living. It's beautiful. I am thriving in this climate. So we went on this beautiful walk and it was very just needed, I think. Followed up by a quick trip to TK Maxx where we have rescued this discounted burb portrait thing as well as a little cabbage ball. So, you know, adult decisions were made and no one's complaining. I have also gone to a Taylor Swift movie because I was not blessed enough to actually manage to get real tickets to the actual in-person show, which is I'm still quite sad about. Maybe some universe trick will happen next year and I will manage to somehow still attend, but it ain't looking likely unless I want to pay for it with like an arm and a leg, which I do not. So I think TikTok has spoiled me for my expectations because I really thought this is going to be, you know, Swifties dancing on the side of the screen, like not in anyone's way, but somewhere vibing, and in reality it was just me like sit dancing and singing a little bit. The rest of the theater, we're pretty much just watching it as a regular movie, and I don't know if this was obviously just that theater, but they played it just a little bit too quiet. You know when you're like listening and it just needs to like turn it up just like by one, and then it just makes all the difference? That's how it felt. Like it felt like just a bit too quiet, which was odd. So I'm semi-tempted to go again. And then we actually did have our workshop. I made 2 ghosts on that live stream because I was wanting to give people enough time to catch up if they were newer to crocheting. So the first one is this, I can't remember what I called him, Nighty or something, because it's Starry Night ghost. And the next one, I really like, I did it specifically so it's not in like fluffy yarn, so it's easier to see on camera of what I'm actually doing. But this is Road Rage. And I love him. I'm going to see if it's gonna be not too big to like hang off the mirror in the car. It might be too big, in which case I obviously won't and I'll just hang it somewhere else. But I love the fact that it almost looks like a pickle and a frog. Obviously the color and the road rage is just, it's just a vibe. So that went really well. Okay, and then a week later I was on a train back to London, which honestly after that 10-hour trip I low-key almost wanted someone to just carry me into it because I didn't want to voluntarily step on the train again because it felt like I was trapped for 10 hours. The trip there was fine. I think there was like a minor delay when there is not. Like I am yet to go on a train to London from Edinburgh that it actually lasts just as long as they say it will. And this was for the MCM Comic-Con, and that was so fun. This was mainly planned by Logan, so I also got to enjoy just being the passenger princess and the whole thing for the most part. The main attraction was Critical Role panel, of course. I have seen their one-shot, and I've also started the 3rd campaign, and I've also seen the animated series of the campaign, of the first campaign. But Logan has pretty much seen not all of it, but a lot of it. Like probably close to all of it. And it was interesting seeing him just like having a fan moment, because he doesn't really get that often. So that was also fun to watch.
Please. Travis Willingham!
Beans on toast? Yes.
I never actually thought they would actually like beans. And you guys are super loud.
Yeah, y'all
have football hooligan shit. Every single one of you. The rumbling at the live show? That, we don't have that. Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing 10,000 Sam Regals staring back at us. You make that pucker face so much. Oh.
I love the artist alley. It was just so amazing seeing so many independent artists having their little corners and their art and their fun things just in general. It was just beautiful. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Another thing that I loved is the Baldur's Gate voices, the voice actors, had a panel as well. Unfortunately, it was cut short because they were running out of, like, behind schedule, but they couldn't go over the schedule. So instead of having 45 minutes with them, I think it was probably closer to half an hour, maybe even shorter. And it felt like that, like it felt rushed, and it was really sad because, mind you, the queuing was probably just as long, and we were there for the Critical Role panel like 2.5 hours before it started, and it was at capacity at around like 1.5 hours left. So it's a good thing that we went that early, but also these conventions can get very exhausting because there's a lot of queuing and a lot of waiting and a lot of just like a lot of people in one space. There are, though, if you do consider going at any point, there are dedicated quiet spaces. I didn't go. I thankfully didn't feel like I needed to, but it was nice knowing that they're there for people to use if they do get overwhelmed, because it was overwhelming, don't get me wrong. The best thing for me was meeting some of the Patreons there, because it was just extremely special and it's a memory I will definitely have for a long time. So it was the best. Anyway, and then going back, lo and behold, there's another storm. All like more than half of the trains from Edinburgh are already cancelled. We get on one of the trains, we sit there finally like, okay, that's fine, we're leaving a bit earlier. That's fine. And then they tell us to get off the train because this one also was cancelled, only to figure out that actually now the later train is the same train we came off of, and it's actually our train that we were supposed to be on, but now there's like 3 trains worth of people on this one train, and everyone's being angry and grumpy and fighting for seats. We actually had seats reserved, but they turned the reservations off, and we did not know that. So we were like, no, we have these reserved, can we please sit in our seats? And unfortunately that train did not quite make it till Edinburgh, and they yeeted us off in Newcastle, and they were like, okay, get a train from here to Edinburgh, it will still be covered by your ticket. Fab. We ran to the train that was leaving right after, but and we got there actually because it was like on the other side of the station. Unfortunately, it was so packed, like I think the doors probably like nipped someone's suitcase when they were closing. So, and we also had a big suitcase with us, so there was just like no chance we're gonna squeeze into that. And if we did, we would have absolutely been standing for the remaining of the journey, which was not the longest part of it, but is still like what, like around 2 hours, bit less. So I was like, let's just wait till the next one, because at that point, according to the boards, the next one was like in half an hour. So I was like, great, we'll stretch our legs, we'll get something to eat, fantastic. Then that one was cancelled, then the next one was cancelled, so we just sat there like, this is fine. This is fine. Eventually we did get on a train. Anyway, all ended up being fine, but it did again come together to around 10 hours. So I'm just not a fan of trips to London, I think is what it is. But anyway, whole time. I did get some silly goofies though, because it is me. So I got 2 shirts, and one says lamp, which I love, and the other one is raccoons for not overthinking. I forgot to bring them with me here, so you're gonna get photos, that's fine. The next thing, and that is the first thing that I was telling people whenever I stepped into the Comic-Con, I was like, I'm sure, because there's a lot of like D&D stands as well, so like I'm sure they must have a big plushie that's a D20, because that I came in with a mission. I've been wanting one for years. And I know you can probably order it online, but I didn't wanna. I wanted to find it somewhere and for it to be special. I had half a mind to try and crochet one. Then I decided to be a bit kinder to myself and not do that. I might still though in the future. But I am very happy and thrilled to say that I got it. And at some point, I think Logan, because we split up because I was spending some time with, you know, people that I was meeting, and he stayed with our party, and he was sending me a message saying like, look, I found these, but he found ones that were, I think they were bags because they had zippers and they were like not like plushed up. I got a tarot deck, which is absolutely amazing. This was the first thing that I got actually, which was a little bit sad because it was like a bigger purchase and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like be very good. And then that day I didn't buy anything. But then by the next day, my resolve to be very good and like kind of dissipated. But that's okay, because all I've been saying to myself is like, it's small businesses. It's small businesses. It's artists. I'm supporting them. Other than this, I don't think this was like a small business, but it could have been actually. Surprised to no one, Internet Frogs. It has the most amazing art. First of all, the backing of these, gorgeous. And then the front of these. I'm just gonna show you a couple. And I think you'll get the vibe. Best decision. I regret absolutely nothing. So that was a brilliant choice on my part. And last but absolutely not least, I got some stickers. I got this one that says Migraine Warrior and it is in holographic foil, but I'm failing to show you that. Very beautiful. This cat with a knife. I got this moth with the lamp, which apparently became quite a theme for me because of the t-shirt as well. And my absolute favorite, which might surprise some because it's so stupid, so actually maybe probably doesn't, but it's this. It's a sausage, but obviously it's sausage, and it's just like a thing that we say with Logan quite often, so immediately special, but also it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious. Like I'm not gonna apologize for my sense of humor. Every time I see this, it makes my day. It's the best money I've ever spent. I have nothing else to say. Then we came back and we had a whole one singular day left of October, and we spent that packing like Patreon bookmarks, and it was also Halloween, so we ordered some Halloweeny donuts. I did, however, finish two other books. When I was on the train to London for Comic-Con and then back from Comic-Con as well, I've decided, because I couldn't focus on listening to anything that was like fantasy, I just really struggled. So I read the Britney Spears memoir. Well, I listened to it because I was on a train and I cannot read physically on a train. I will gender everywhere. And as a kid, and I remember in these CD stores, because that's how ancient I am, maybe cassettes even. No, I think it was CD. I had a lot of Britney Spears ones, and I was really like following the news about her as much as I could, because again, not everything was translated, or we were really starved of stuff. Anyway, so she was actually a very significant part of my childhood. And I didn't really follow her that much after I, you know, became like a teen. I have seen stuff around the conservatorship and all of that going on, because I think it was like hard to miss, and also just heartbreaking and interesting at the same time, just bizarre all over, and something like out of Black Mirror episode. I don't know how much it was written by her or ghost written. Whoever, if it was ghost written, I felt like they kept her tone fairly well, and when you were listening to it, at least, it felt fairly authentic. The language was not complicated. It was quite simplistic. It was actually fairly repetitive and almost felt like there's a certain lack of editing in it. But it was so obviously not about that, and I am not gonna also assign a rating because it's not like a bad story that I'm reading, it's someone's life. But although I have obviously rated other memoirs in the past, so I guess it's not really... But because of the topic, I don't know, it feels not fitting for me personally. I don't know why. It's just like I'm also not quite sure how well she is, and I don't know. She was just done so dirty, but it also sounds like she really needed a lot of help throughout the life that was just simply not offered and not didn't seem like an option, which is really interesting, because when you think of celebrities and people who are that rich, you think that everything is at the tip of their fingertips, you know, like it's like everything is within reach, and all help and anything is just very accessible, which in theory it probably is, but it's in practice very complicated. And so it was interesting to glimpse into that life. I do think as a book, or as comparing with some other memoirs, it's not in the league of, you know, I'm Glad My Mom Died, for example. That was like a production that was a very layered and craftily done. This was more like a stream of consciousness, but I'm glad that she got an opportunity to say her piece and her perspective, especially importantly, because she was silenced for so very long, and just the way that her family treated her is just bizarrely unfair. And it's funny though, because from time to time it would be so interesting just how much she seems to be aware of her behaviors, but then repeat the same behavior in the book as well. So specifically, like, for example, she would say like, oh, I was acting almost like a child because I didn't feel like an adult because of the way that they treated her, or like would go back into that safety of being a child and would act like a child as an adult, like a coping mechanism, right? But then like sometimes in the book it would slip through that, and I would be like, that's quite a childish way to address that, and it was almost circular, and it was really interesting to read. Overall, it was just quite sad to me. The next thing that I finished literally a couple minutes before I started this, is Stunning and Drowning. I have a book club in like a couple of hours for this, so I probably will have more thoughts then, although I'm regretting filming this now because my voice is completely going. Fantastic decisions. And I just don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting premise. I think the prose was also quite good. I did not realize, but this is maybe on me, that I want to say sexual assault, but like tentatively, was gonna be such a key part of a story. So that's something to bear in mind. But we also had a lot of chat about mental health and anxiety, which were definitely parts I personally enjoyed the most. That being said, and I also don't think this is bad in any shape or form. That being said, I was just so thoroughly not in it. I was so not invested in it. The writing sometimes was like too lyrical for my liking or my preferences. I was not intrigued for a mystery, which was obviously a key part. I could have stopped at any given point and been content, and that's a real shame. But I really don't know. I'm so not confident this month that all of this is because of the book, or is it because I'm currently clearly in a massive slump because of that fanfiction. So it could be either, but I also can totally understand why people love this, because it is it's super atmospheric, but it also deals with like a coastal setting, which has historically not been my favorite. So I wonder if it's possibly that too. Hello Zeus, we've been visited by another cat. Another thing that I've been working on during October, started maybe a little bit early, I actually can't remember, maybe I did start in October. I'm gonna make a Sun and Moon tote bag from granny squares, which is a new venture for me, because believe it or not, I somehow skipped that step of crocheting, which I feel like is a pretty kind of standard starting block as well. Well, I did not start with that block. So it was a little bit intimidating going into a granny square for the first time in my life, but it seems like I'm okay at it. So all is fine so far. So for that I need 8 of the moon squares, and I currently have 6. So I have a little stack, and I still need to, or I still want to, because they're not exactly like the same, size because clearly my tension is inconsistent and depends on when I pick it up. So block it. I know I don't have to, but I kind of wanna. The squares currently look like, I'm not actually sure which side it is, the right side. Is there a right side? But yeah, this is the squares. So that's gonna be the moon ones. And I also have the sun ones, which I need 6 of. So if these were the sun ones, I would be already finished with that, which is very exciting. I'm very excited to get the other one because then I only need 2 more of these, and then I can move on to a different pattern, which will be very fun for me because I'm just wild like that. Oh, and the last thing, oh my god, yesterday, so it's technically November, but it doesn't matter. I was with Logan's siblings, we're meeting up, and we had a couple of drinks. I started on like the non-alcoholic type, but they were like fun ones with dry ice, so that was also just entertaining because I'm easily entertained like that. Then we had some amazing Mexican food, and I will definitely be returning to this place. And we went to this ball pit, which was so fun. If you ever want to like really bring out your inner child, go to a ball pit. I don't think too much about how nasty the balls must probably be because, you know, of all of the feet, but don't think about that too much, just have fun. And it was so fun. So I was hoping to actually show you some books that also arrived, but I might do that in a separate video because apparently I've been talking for a very long time and I need to save some voice for the book club. Sorry for the light change, but I also realized that I have never actually published our stats for the autumn equinox, so I'm gonna do it now before I forget again. So I think overall, the slightly sad part is that we were a little bit away from our previous August batch on, you know, beating the reading goal, which is fine because this means that in the next August of 2024 our goal is just going to be a little bit lower, so hopefully it will help us achieve that, and not every year is the same. And honestly, for once, maybe it's nice that we haven't done it because it makes it a bit less of a guarantee and we know we can fail. But our previous score to beat was 25,829 books, and we have read a still extremely amazing and impressive number. Amazing. So please, I just hope that no one feels discouraged by the fact that we didn't quite beat the previous record. However, I almost like that because I feel like we almost always do, and it's kind of like a given. So now this is proof that it isn't, and I don't know. Next time we beat it, it will make it a little bit more special. So the next couple of bits from the statistics is from this user right here, which is so handy for having this at hand. Thank you so much, because sometimes it's not my favorite part looking at these, so thank you very much. Actually, let me walk to the computer because I'm not sure that my phone is showing everything. And it's very interesting also seeing the number of like characters in each guild. So as you can see here, pretty much the double of Order of the Crescent, which is why obviously the number of books read and whatnot is always going to be higher, because it is pretty much double the number. It is the most popular guild, which is interesting to me as the creator of these guilds. It's like, I really kind of want to know why. But I also get it. I get it. So the second being House of the Arcane, but these three being very similar in numbers, I would say the Mindwalkers and the Archivist especially is, you know. However, for Order of the Crescent being so much more populated, I'd say that the other houses did a really, really good job, because the difference between the amounts read is not always like double. Sometimes they're a little bit less, which is quite interesting. I love this book per student graph though, because the Archivist, which is the least populated guild, seems to kind of consistently throughout the years to be the guild who reads the most per character, and it makes me so happy to know this particular statistics, because it doesn't really matter as long as people read and have fun. It doesn't matter. But the fact that it's the Archivist, like the guild that is supposed to be all about reading and text and gathering knowledge, and I mean all of them are, but you know what I mean, like they're the archivists. They love ancient texts. So this particular little thing that keeps happening with the statistics, like it just makes me extra happy about that. So they seem to be reading more books per student as well as more pages per student. So more books per student and also bigger books per student. So if we actually didn't go just by the number of books read and the pages of books read in total, and we would go for the medium number, which is I guess look at it as a bit more fair version of an average, because it does a little bit more evening it out, considering like situations like this one where the houses are not even in number. The archivist, I think, would have won this round. So there you have it. I'd say if you are in the Archivist Guild, you should allow yourself 20 guild reputation points just for a job well done. Another fun graph is this one that shows you the classes and qualifications completed. I thought it was actually quite interesting that restoration seems to be one of the most studied subjects this time. And I actually am really glad to see that a lot of the qualifications and opportunities were logged, because I wasn't 100% sure that people enjoyed having that as an addition. And this is quite validating, and that is why data is so fun to have. Not fun for me to like collate, which is why I need you guys to do that, which I'm very grateful for now that you guys do. But this, for me as a creative on the side of doing all of the prep and stuff, is very, very good to know. So I'm happy that that seems to be like the case. Spells and incantation being in the third place is not too surprising, because obviously I made the things, and spells and incantations was like one of the most applicable classes for all of the careers, so that totally makes sense. And I love these other two tables. So we have most popular books, which is one of my favorite things, because every semester it is something different. And unsurprisingly, because we had a prompt of scroll your social media or a reading page like Goodreads and get the first one that you see recommended to you, or the first one that you own that you see pop up. And of course we are living in the age of Fourth Wing still, but especially when the readathon was actually happening, which again, sorry for coming with this data so late. And Fourth Wing was read at least 183 times. Probably more, because of the misspellings and you know, the data is not accurate if like there's variation in people writing the title. So probably higher, but Fourth Wing was read at least 183 times, which is quite a lot, quite a lot. Then we have Legends and Lattes with 114, and I can't remember if we had a cozy fantasy, maybe that's why. Divine Rivals, which is also not too surprising, because it was going around. It really gained traction around that time. The one that was a bit more surprising to me was the Tea Dragon Society, because I feel like that's an older release now, considering the other titles. And it's interesting seeing it still pop up. And then there's also another graph that's popular authors, and it's different from the books, which makes sense, because people might read different title of the same author, making some authors actually be more popular in amount of numbers rather than, you know, the Fourth Wing. For example, Rebecca Yarros seems to be in the 7th spot rather than the first one, whereas for the title it's the first one. So instead, the most read author is actually Alice Oseman, which is really cute to see. There's a lot of really good and heartwarming works by Alice Oseman. The next one is Sarah J. Maas, actually. And then we have Brandon Sanderson, which is also interesting. And then Martha Wells. I didn't quite know it's gonna vary so much from the books and the authors of the top books, but it's very interesting to see. And lastly, I just want to make note of the top students of each guild. So if you are named here, assign yourself 10 guild reputation points as well. But very well done. I hope that you guys had a lot of fun. As I said, I'm quite like weirdly excited that we didn't beat the goal this time, just because it makes it a bit more special when we do, if that makes sense. So I'm very excited for April, and hopefully we do it then. Again, sorry for taking so long in presenting this to you, but we've done it now. So Okay, that's it. But I hope you enjoyed this, a little bit different of a vlog, a recap of the month, and I feel a bit more caught up with you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful November ahead of you. I have a light fall thing coming your way, which I'm very excited about, and I will speak to you in a little bit. Bye.